collective.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Baraboo to order for Monday, November the 12th, 2012, with roll call. Mr. Cummings.
Here.
Mr. McNevin.
Here.
Mr. Meering.
Here.
Mr. Mortimer.
Here.
Ms. Riley.
Here.
Mr. Vidro.
Here.
And Bodak here. Continue with the pledge, which is behind the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would entertain a motion that it be resolved that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2012 meeting as printed.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Vidro, seconded by Meering. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are thus approved. Brings us to correspondence. I have none to share. Any other board members with correspondence to share?
Yeah, I have something, this is from the Department of Public Instruction. Today they made an announcement on fair funding plan, which we previously approved. There are some variations of it. I won't go into great details on it tonight, but would like to discuss it at a future board meeting, but I'll send you a note, Crystal and Kevin, on that for future discussion. Mo Riley and myself, we were just up at NENA, Wisconsin School Board Association legislative meeting, so we would probably, again, at that future meeting, also talk about what they discussed.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members with correspondence? Any administrative correspondence?
I have several tonight. First of all, I have a thank you from the Baraboo FFA for allowing them to attend the national convention where they learned how to improve their leadership skills, and they included a photo, so I'll pass that around. Secondly, we were pleased to receive communication from the Madison Community Foundation, and they enclosed a gift of over $1,000. It's awarded from the Wisconsin Youth Services Fund, and we'll be able to use that for physical items to remove the barriers for children to actively participate in school activities, things like winter clothing, eyeglasses, different kinds of supplies. So we'll put that in the student donation account, and then we'll report back to them on how those gifts were used. And the last piece of communication comes from the Wisconsin eSchool Network. As you know, it's part of the statewide consortium that we are a part of. And I'll just remind you again that Rhonda Kopphamer, our high school online coordinator here, is the organization's board president. And so the letter comes from both her as well as the director of that association. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things with that communication. They've just finalized a memorandum of understanding with the DPI so that this program can fall under the Wisconsin Digital Learning Collaborative along with the Wisconsin Virtual School. They're excited about the potential to create these resources to provide equitable access for all districts through Wisconsin. And in the last 3 years, student enrollment in this consortium has increased from just over 4,000 to 7,500 students. So I believe that by being participants with this consortium, we're remaining competitive with all of the online options that are out there for students. Likewise, the districts have doubled just in the last 3 years who are participating in Wisconsin. And then finally, just to let you know that we went from offering 94 courses now to a total of 232 unique course offerings. So at some point I'd like Rhonda to come before the board and just give an update on the success of the program, what kinds of classes our students are registering for, and this will definitely be a component when we reach out to our homeschool families and letting them know about the resources that are available to them.
Okay, thank you. Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Public Viewpoints. Do we have anybody here for public viewpoints tonight? Yes, please, if you'd approach the microphone and state your name.
My name is Matthew Esser. I'm here on behalf of myself. I'm having issues with my kid getting transportation from where I live to where he goes to school. I live at 335 8th Avenue, and he goes to GLW. And we think he might have Asperger's. We're doing testing for him that, but it's hard for him to take that walk on really cold days. And with the loud noises of like semis and that go by, he freaks out. And also, winter's coming, like I said before, if it's too cold outside for them to go outside for a recess, for like a 15-20 minute recess, to keep him inside to play, but yet I have to let him walk a half an hour to school, even on them cold days. I'm trying to figure out if there's any way to get any type of transportation for not just my kid that lives on that street, any kid that lives on that street that might be able to walk on really cold days. And when the plow goes through, I've had a shovel with the plow puts up on my sidewalk. I wouldn't want to walk through it where I get hit by it either. So my big concern is because I leave at 5:15 a.m. every day to go to work. So I would need morning transportation for my kid. Afternoon I can pick him up except Wednesdays, because the whole school district gets out at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. And my wife, she's got medical issues of her own that it's hard for her to walk him, but she does it because he has to get to school. So like I said, the biggest thing is trying to figure out some way to get transportation. And I've been through other members of the school and that, and they've told me that his disability isn't severe enough to get transportation, but yet I've got no other way to get him to school. I mean, that's my big issue. They say his disability is not severe enough to get the special ed transportation, but yet it's hard for him to walk to school. He has a bad day at school because of the walk sometimes, because he's already tired and exhausted from the walk. And just this morning, my wife said he complained his legs felt like they were burning because it was so cold out. But we have him completely bundled up in winter gear, but the cold still really bothers him. I'm going to end it just by saying the biggest thing is trying to figure out a way to get transportation for certain families that live on them roads that can't get the transportation because their kids don't have a disability to get special ed transportation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to have that addressed formally to you from our transportation director. I would direct our director of transportation to get back to you with an answer for that. We do have an agenda item that we're going to discuss later tonight, but it involves shuttle buses within the city. It doesn't involve elementary transportation. It's shuttle buses to the middle and to the high school. So I just didn't want you to, if you see that on the agenda, to make a connection as to that's dealing with your question, which I understand your question, and I would like to have a response provided to you. Okay? All right, thank you. Is there any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoints? Hearing and seeing none, I'd like to move on to Roman numeral 4, which is the staff and student recognition. And first up tonight, we have Ian Crammond, who's going to talk a little bit about the youth apprenticeship and the co-op opportunities for the high school students.
Good evening. I'm Ian Crammond. I'm tech ed teacher, welding instructor, and drafting instructor at Baraboo High School here. I brought 2 students along with me to talk about their experiences in the youth apprenticeship program and the co-op program. Both very, very detailed programs that have really helped our tech ed program evolve and put some quality workers out into the industry as of today. Just a little background, Austin Hitchcock, you want to stand up, Austin? He'll give some experiences, but he's had a couple of opportunities just within this year. He was working at Menards, doing some projects for me within my welding program, and an opportunity came up that he was able to actually transfer as a co-op student over to Baraboo Tent and Awning to work on projects for them. Not only does he work over there as a youth or a co-op student, excuse me, but within my project or within my welding class, he is working right now on a project for the Baraboo Police Department. They have an issue with storing some weapons in a couple of their squad cars. So Austin is, along with myself, creating some lock boxes basically that will be riding in the back of the squad car. So we've been working along with Chief Schaaf and a couple of their members of their department. So He's been taking some of the skills that he learns in our classes, besides his co-op experience, to apply those to real world situations. And then the other student is Ben Stone, who is a member of our Skills USA program, which is very similar to the FFA plan or program also, but it's housed within Tech Ed. Ben is in the culinary arts area. Ben has actually taken second place in our Skills USA competition and is furthering his career by heading to a culinary school next year. But as a youth apprenticeship person, he was able to continue working more hours actually at his job at Monks at the Wilderness to help improve his skills for his culinary career as he moves on. A little bit about the youth apprenticeship program. The youth apprenticeship program, which I am in charge of, is open to both juniors and seniors in the high school. They have certain requirements that are set by DPI in a number of areas of study that they must accomplish. They have to have a job employed by a place to complete those skills. Some of those areas that are covered is in the ag and natural resources area, working on many of our local farms, both large animal and small animal, working at a vet clinic. There's a certain criteria that are set up by the DPI that they have to accomplish, core skills, and then individual skills testing out, and those are all evaluated by their on-site supervisors. Crops, greenhouse work, and then landscaping also fall under ag and natural resources. We cover the business area with banking and finance and accounting. One area that's been pretty strong in previous years for Baraboo has been health sciences. We have put out a number of CNAs. In fact, I had 3 ladies graduate last year that were CNAs. One was in Reedsburg, and then 2 of them worked for up at St. Clair. And 2 of them went on to UW-Oshkosh for the nursing program, and 1 is still working over in Reedsburg as a CNA. So we've had quite a following with that. Information technology, transportation, distribution, and logistics. The auto technician area, we had a student last year working out for Don Larson, doing a variety of tasks that any A Tech or B Tech would do for Don Larson Chevrolet or really any auto dealership or service center. And one other area which Ben falls under is hospitality and tourism, which is obviously a huge area around here, with food and beverage, lodging, maintenance, marketing and sales, and management. All of those fall under the youth apprenticeship areas of study. Each student is required to earn 450 work hours to be completed in the program. As a junior, they obviously would be able to carry that on, and any hours that they do during the summer on the weekends count. And as a senior, by the time they do the 2-year program, they need 900 total work hours on the job, checked off, signed, and dated based off of their work time slips from their employer. So it's a great program that they have the opportunity for. And as those students go on to college, tech school, other career advancements, there's an application process that says, were you involved in a youth apprenticeship program? And those students have an opportunity to mark that. And it's actually marked on their college or their high school transcripts stating that they were involved in a youth apprenticeship program. So a great number of opportunities for these students to be able to get out in the community, work with members in our community, business and industry to help themselves prepare themselves for the real world in the future. Our co-op program, which is run by our department head, Mike McGann, has covered really all 4 CTE areas, and we cover business, ag, family consumer ed, and then obviously tech ed. And so those areas, the students do very similar amount. They have to work a certain number of hours. They have to average about 12 hours a week. They meet 1 day a week in the classroom for the first semester, where Mike will cover job skills, job seeking skills, job keeping skills, and then obviously if they move on to a different area, how do you go off on the right foot in ending your relationship with that employer to move on to whatever your next career area is. So those are all the different skills that the students are learning while they're in the classroom, and then that's just the small amount compared to what they actually learn hands-on. So I'll give these guys a little bit of time to talk about their experiences, and then I'll talk about the business tour that was taking place a couple weeks ago. You guys want to talk?
I'm Ben Stone. I work up at Monks at the Wilderness for my youth apprenticeship program. As of now, I'm getting about 30 to 34 hours a week. Now with this program, I work on, just either expediting food or cooking or working with banquets. And when I'm not at work, I get out 6th or 7th hour. So either I go home and do chores around the house, or I go to the Civic Center to work with our food service program, or I also play in our symphony band as well. And thankfully, getting out 6th or 7th hour gives me those options.
My name is Austin Hitchcock, and as Mr. Kramer said, I used to work up at Menards here in Baraboo, and the job was alright, but it wasn't getting me to where I really wanted to, start my career at. And senior in high school, time to start figuring that out real soon. Being able to get out 6th and 7th hour for a co-op is great. I love it so much. The fact that being able to weld in his class for the 2nd year now on stuff that normal students wouldn't be able to do, and the fact that the co-op teacher, Mr. McGann, was able to talk to Andy Moon down at Baraboo Tent and Awning to get me a job down there was just phenomenal. It's setting me right now on a track towards where I need to get in a career, because I'm going to be going into a career that's going to involve welding. And it's just amazing being able to work down there on the projects that they have, being able to go hands-on. I get out of here right after lunch gets done. I go straight to work. I'm still in my work clothes right now. Just got done. So, but it is just amazing. I want any junior that's going to be a senior next year to try out for co-op. They want to get a tech job, which is where I'm going at, or any sort of business education job, anything like that. It's just phenomenal. I mean, it sets you up for your career that you're going to be going into, and the fact that, I have great teachers that, I never thought I'd be able to, in high school, work on something for, an actual business like police department. And I get a, basically, he just stands there and watches, and I get to do it hands on.
Jig is up. Well said.
Well, I get to do it all by myself, like as if I was, a full adult working out in the career field right now. I'd be able to do it by myself. I get to do it right here at school, and then it's something I love to do. And when I get done with school, I get to go actually to my job where I get paid to do this stuff that I learn, that I love doing, everything like that. So it's just a phenomenal experience, and I hope that it stays around for years to come for students to get their life set and start on track. And actually, the best way to describe it is the fact that you may not be an adult yet, because I'm only 17, but I have all of the responsibilities and the actual experience of I'm an adult, and I have to be able to take care of stuff. And the fact that being able to do this co-op and everything like that is just amazing. I have to fill out timesheets just like everyone else does. I have to punch into work. I get paid for it, and I actually get people telling me, hey, you have to do this a little bit differently, and this is amazing being able to experience the stuff that I've been able to this last year of high school here. So that's it.
So both of these guys have quite a different track. It's a nice thing also for these young people to be able to go into businesses and industry, and it may not work out that that's a career field where they actually want to go, but it's nice that they can learn this ahead of time now, as opposed to get 10, 15 years down the road and say, that's what I want to do. We've had past experiences where students have gone to work in the heating and air conditioning area, and they thought that's what they wanted to do. They did a co-op for a year there, and they found out that the heating and air conditioning area wasn't really necessarily where they wanted to end up. So it's a nice way to get them, the experience too, when they get hands-on skills. A couple weeks ago, Mr. McGann took about 20 students to 2 local businesses. He took the group to Flammable Plastics, and then he also took them down to Milwaukee Valve in Sauk to get an idea of what kind of careers there are. You know, not just working in the floor, not only that, but working in an engineering department, working in the front office with human resources and the accounts payable and the accounts receivable. So all the different careers that are available, really working at a place like Flambeau Plastics or Teal or Milwaukee Valve, any of the local places that would be able to employ. One nice thing that he said was they really try to promote from within. A lot of their employees have started working out on the floor and have just worked their way up to a supervisory position and then maybe taken some schooling, where I know Flambeau will provide monies for schooling in the future, and then they are able to advance their career into a different department. So that was one nice thing. The students broke down into 3 different groups when they went on these tours, and were able to visit the various departments, and were actually able to ask some good quality questions and learn some stuff instead of being crammed into a group of 20 and having one person explain all of that. So it's really nice that the local businesses are willing to put this on and really organize something for the students to be able to come out and experience. It's really neat for our kids to get out in the classroom and kind of see what's going on. Really, you know, we try to teach the basic concepts and give it to them, but when they actually see those concepts in application, the light bulb kind of goes on a lot of times. One thing we would like to definitely say from our department, the 3 of us, Mike McGann, Mike Moran, and myself, is we'd like to thank all of the different businesses that work with us through donations and materials that are donated, time that is donated to us. We've had just an awesome number of people that have donated time. When Austin and I were working on, or are working on that project, Austin, like I said, is doing 90% of it. I contacted a local business, Synergy Metalworks, and they spent the time. They took us, the both of us, in the back shop, and they bent our boxes up for us. Austin's welding them all together, but they literally took the time, probably an hour and a half of the owner's time, and then one of his employees, he took the time to bend that up. And some of it's the number of donations and things that come to our department is great. And we've done a lot of stuff for other places too, like our maintenance shop. We've made a lot of parts for them on our CNC equipment that we have, and we've also made a lot of different parts for them through our machine tool area. So it's been just a great opportunity that these young men have, and a lot of opportunities that are in the future still coming up for students to do. So with that, that's the end. Is there any questions? Yes.
Well, Mr. Kerman, this is a tremendous opportunity for our students, but we're also employers and addressing the skills gap. So, you know, I'm very impressed with the program. Can you tell me what your biggest challenges are in administering this program? Is it recruiting enough students? Do you get enough applicants for the kind of spots you have? Is it identifying and finding employers? Are there transportation issues? What do you think is the most difficult thing you have to accomplish every year, you have to overcome every year to make this happen?
Right now, for me as a youth apprenticeship coordinator, is the numbers. My numbers are lower for a school our size. We should probably have 10 to 15 members. I've got 4 to 5 students in youth apprenticeship, and it's really kind of been a change because this is only the 2nd year that I've been in charge of this program. So it's kind of getting the marketing going. Mike has been in charge. Mike has been around for quite a while, and he's been in charge of co-op for quite a while. And trying to get these students to decide, you know, if they don't want to do a 2-year program, then the co-op. But if they want to start looking at the 2-year, then I want to try to start to encourage them to get involved in the 2-year part. The transportation, most of the students have their own transportation, and that's one of the requirements, or they have to be able to get there on a reliable transportation. One nice thing is we have a number of family consumer ed people that work at the different schools helping out or do the education assistant type setup program for their co-op. So they're able to either walk or get a ride over to the different school if they need to. As far as, you know, hiring goes, it's kind of been one of those things where we have some issues with the 18, with being 18 to get into different type of industrial settings. So it really kind of depends upon what the setting is that the student wants to go in. So each case is kind of different.
Ian was part of a, I guess call it like a focus group this summer, and we met with some area businesses and government officials and just a wide range of people at this meeting to talk about how to create awareness of some of the technical careers that are out there and how some of the jobs have evolved in manufacturing. And so working with Jean Dahlhoff, who was also a part of that meeting, we came up with the idea to do this pilot, which is the tour that Ian was referring to. So we started with a smaller group of students. I think Reedsburg participated. I think maybe just our 2 districts participated. And we'd like to expand that and do that in the spring with IT careers and health occupational careers too. So Ian has been he's been a leader in this area, and the timing couldn't be better because Tony Evers released the news release that I forwarded to you late this afternoon that talked about the importance of career and technical education. And the career paths are not the same for all students. And I think you've done a good job of highlighting all the options that are out there. We need to do a good job of marketing it for not only students but for parents as well. And so we'll continue to work on that and expand our business education partnerships. But Ian, I'd like to recognize your work on behalf of the board and the leadership that you provide for our individual students here at the high school and make them successful. And fellas, come on up. Have some recognition medallions for you as well. It's obvious that you're representing our school district in a very positive way out in the community, and you're taking full advantage of the opportunities that are offered to you here so that you can be successful in your career and have that edge on others that you're competing with. So Ben, this kind of feels like deja vu from North Freedom. Congratulations. And Austin, same to you, and good luck with the work that you're doing, and thank you for representing our school. Thank you.
Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Continuous School Improvement, and first up, we are going to talk about the summer school evaluation data. Angie?
To send around a copy of the data that I compiled on our summer school program. So I'll give you a chance to get your hands on that before we talk about it. I was really tempted to do a bunch of slides, but then I heard that that might not be the best course.
What?
Right? That's what you told me, right, Laura?
I was just helping. I wasn't paying attention.
She wants to show all hers.
Okay, well, what you've got coming around, there's the 3 pages, and it includes reading data from summer school from spring 2012 to fall 2012, and then the last page is math data. So we're going to take a look at all 3. The top page includes data from kindergarten through 4th grade. It's our Fountas and Pinnell data. Just as a reminder, that's a test that's given individually, one-on-one with the teacher sitting down with the student, listening to them read and talking about the story. And so at the 5th grade level, that test becomes maybe a little less reliable, gives us a little less useful data. So the 5th graders, I've compiled their math data, which is the computer-based assessment that we use, and that I felt was a little better look at the kids. So what you're seeing across there, the top section with the yellow highlighted box is Fountas and Pinnell data for students who did not attend summer school. So what I was comparing were the kids who went to summer school and the kids who did not attend summer school. Our summer school was targeted to our neediest students, the students at the highest risk, the students that were struggling the most. So you can see that is in the purple at the bottom. So across the top you have the total number of students in the group. So kindergarten, there were 177 students who didn't attend summer school, so that's how that reads. And then in each of the boxes going down are the number of students who dropped a reading level from last spring to this fall, the students whose reading level remained the same from spring to fall, and the students whose reading level went up from spring to fall. The small number at the bottom, the 122 in the kindergarten column, that is compiling the last two boxes. So ideally what we want for our kids is that they would remain at the same reading level or go up over the summer. We want to prevent that summer slide as much as possible. So I combined those two boxes, and that's the small number that's at the bottom. Okay, and then the grid with the purple, it reads the exact same way, it's just for the students who did attend summer school. Then at the bottom in the gray, I totaled both. Okay, so I'm not gonna read through all those boxes to you, I'm gonna let you browse through those a little bit and kind of get a feel for how things were going. And when you feel like you're ready, we can flip to the next page and we'll talk a little bit about the math data.
Can we have some
Angie.
questions on this?
Absolutely.
It looks like the summer school students did do as well. Is that right? Am I looking at this correct?
Yeah, you are looking at it correctly.
And there's a reason why this,
Mhm.
why?
Because you remember the population that we targeted
I know.
were the kids who are struggling the most with reading.
Yeah.
And then we also want to consider that the test that we gave, the spring score was from the end of April, early May,
Mhm.
and then they weren't assessed again until mid-September.
No.
So you've got still almost a 12-week to 14-week gap between when those two tests were given, and summer school was 20 days in the middle of that. And these are the students who struggle the most. And so I don't feel like expecting those kids to have come out having gained was necessarily appropriate. What we're trying to do is minimize the slide and how far back they slid.
Yeah, there's no correlation between the top and the bottom, between the yellow and the purple, because the baseline that we need to reference is when you look at third grade in the summer school students, that 17 participated, and yet only 30% remain the same or improved.
Mhm.
The baseline you're wondering is what would have happened to those 17 students had they not participated
Right.
at all?
Yep.
Was that only 3% would have improved and now we're up to 30%? So comparing the top and the bottom is not something you are
Right.
able to do.
And that, I mean, we could dig for that data, we could mine for that data if we needed to. A lot of times the students in those groups are transient, so sometimes that's easier, sometimes a little harder, depends on the particular
Well,
population.
did we do that last year? Okay, we didn't have a program, and we have these
No.
kids that are at the lower end.
Right.
So we didn't have this baseline for last year and saying,
No.
well, last year we did the same test for these, and it was 3%, not 30.
Right.
But
So this
next
is
year
your
we
first
don't
data
know.
point. Yes, next year we could.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm supportive of all of our efforts to help our young people, especially those who have the greatest need. I think what Doug is suggesting is that we'd love to also be able to laser in on how well we're doing and supporting them, the same way that we're doing in all of our other areas, and where the specific, what is to be learned, and then implementing what is to be learned.
And we're gonna talk a little bit about that in just a minute too.
Okay, then I will have to ask the next question.
All right, if you flip to the math data on the next page, you're gonna see that it's similar. However, I feel like at the 4th and 5th grade level, our summer school students did about the same as their peers. So they haven't lost more ground, they probably maintained a little better in that particular assessment. So that is also reading data, it's just looking at math. There's no math assessment in kindergarten and first grade, so that's why there's no data in those boxes. Second grade's the first time we give it.
I just want to add, so this is similar data but different assessment. And another thing I want to note is that the MAP assessment that we're using this year is the Common Core version, which has more performance-based assessment items and includes a bit more rigor. So, looking at that through that lens too.
Okay. Any questions on that one?
I'd love to get your assessment. The numbers, percentages, they can speak to different things, and I would love for you to guide us through what you're seeing as the program implementer.
Yep. Okay, all right. hang on. I'm getting
Okay.
there. Okay, the last page is the math data. We don't have an assessment like Fountas and Pinnell from math. We do have pre and post testing with everyday math, but for the sake of this, we use the math assessment. And there, I think, Doug, you're gonna see what you were looking for, is that the summer school students tended to remain at their same level or gain at a better rate than the students who didn't attend. And I think math does tend to take a bigger slide in the summertime. It's more likely that kids are gonna, read or get involved with the library. It's less likely that they're gonna sit down and do math problems over the summer. So I think that's what you were looking for with the reading, and it's
Sure.
apparent there with the math.
And why do you think we're seeing that in math?
Do you want me to speak to that?
Well, go ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about it.
It's my overall perception in looking at all of our assessment data that our students currently are doing much better, performing much better in math than they are in reading. And we've seen that, through last year's data when we looked at our MAP data. So even though we saw great increases in both, we're seeing a more rapid growth with math. My perception on that is our teachers feel more confident with their instruction with math, and they feel more confident in using the math data to intervene. And so we've had numerous conversations through the literacy curriculum team and our coaches about how can we structure reading instruction in a similar way so that teachers feel confident with their instruction and confident with the use of data to intervene. And one of the things that we will have as a tool this year that we didn't have last year and also for summer school is the use of our Ames Web progress monitoring data. And with Ames Web, that allows us to do what you were talking about, Peter, to laser in on a specific skill that they really may be missing. So let's say it's oral reading fluency. Then we know it's specifically that skill, and we can be laser-like, to use your word, to provide the right intervention to close the gap. And what will be nice about Ames Web is we can actually show you charts of that growth just for the summer school kids.
To add on, I think when we talk about lasering into with math, when I look at my data in math, I can tell when I have students who are struggling with addition facts, subtraction facts, multiplication facts. It's very easy to see that. It pops right out at you. When a student's struggling with comprehension, you have to peel that away like an onion. There are layers and layers and layers of comprehension to try to figure out exactly what's the right next step. And that can be tricky.
Well, Lori, I just want to say, it is your word, I think, that I'm reflecting back about being.
Oh,
able to
being
laser
laser-like.
in. So thank you. The second thing is, in the earlier presentation of these two young men, to me, both as an educator and as a parent, as well as a member of the board, I believe that when we as adults can identify something that young people are interested in, their level of attention, of acuity, of perception, comprehension, all of the things that we seek for them rises significantly. And so I would ask only that we consider, in addition to looking at what their reading level might be, that the material we give them to read is something that they have a passion or interest about. And part of that is assessing psychologically, what their interests are. If a person is interested in theater or dance or the arts, then having material about that, I think, provided to them as a part of this assessment certainly enhances many things. I don't know how we do that. I'm just posing that might be something that we should consider.
Well, and just to add to that, this is, like you said before, too, one data point. We now want to see growth over the next couple of years to really see the effectiveness of summer school. But also, we're going to be looking at this data as a summer school planning committee to talk about how do we grow what we have.
We also had data at the end of summer that really demonstrated the fact that kids who were in our summer school program by the end of summer school had maintained their Fountas and Pinnell reading level or went beyond it from the end of the school year. Then there's that other 5 or 6 weeks of summer left, and so we have to keep that in mind. But some of that anecdotal and data that the teachers were keeping at the end of summer school was very positive in terms of them maintaining at least their instructional level in reading, and in most cases increasing it by a level or two. So I think that was positive, and other data that we have to share.
I think we can't forget about the other benefits of summer school that we don't necessarily measure. I mean, just as a reminder, we fed 400 students this summer, and those students also have opportunities to continue to improve social skills and have positive interactions with adults and their peers during the summer. We don't measure that, but that's still very important.
And also as a reminder, the credit recovery that our high school students gained.
It's, again, just looking at this data for the first time, and just some curiosity on the math reading scores. And it seems like we have the same appearance on both the top and the bottom, which we don't get in some of the other scores. Is there, like, the other scores have a pretty good middle group percentage of people that have stayed the same, but on this math one, it's either you're on the good side or the bad side. Is there something about the test?
Yeah, there is. There was some, in this MAP scale, a student may have a score of 199 or 187 or 159, whereas in Fountas and Pinnell it's an A, B, C, D. So you have 26 possible scores in Fountas and Pinnell. You've got 200 and some in MAP. And so to hit the exact same number that they had last time is much more difficult. So the exact, I mean, if I had taken a range and said, okay, if they're 3 points ahead of last time or 3 points below, I'm going to count it as staying the same, we could have done that. But I felt like I was setting that arbitrarily, so I just went through and calculated exactly the way it was. So you're not going to see as many that are going to have remained the same. But some of those that dropped by 1 or 2 points.
Okay.
Some of them that gained by 1 or 2 points. That's the nature of that test.
Just a tighter standard. Okay, I mean, at this point, it's back to the committee and saying these are the things that we're going to do, not only for the kids that are in summer school, are we looking at things for those that aren't?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about what are different ways to enhance our summer school program, but we still have to have a limited focus as we continue to grow the program.
I know, but these kids that aren't in summer school, is there something we're trying?
Well, one of the things that I think, and Glenn, feel free to kibitz in because we were both there to facilitate that discussion, but we're looking at ways to provide choice in our summer school program, also for the kids that we're targeting, but to perhaps bring in other students. But we still have to have that limit focus until we grow enough to welcome everyone.
Yeah, so right now we really felt like we had to prioritize those students with the greatest need, and the students that we brought in.
I want to really thank you for the work involved in all of this, and having heard the range of 2 to 3 points here, 2 to 3 points there, what would really help me is that plus or minus range and interpretation of this with graphs that highlight what it is you'd like us to see, because I'm very interested in this. And I think our summer program, especially for our targeted youth, is absolutely essential. And I think part of our challenge, as I've said, is to find the ways that, or vehicles that help us find out what they're interested in so that we can feed them more of that. And thank you.
I would like to publicly recognize Angie's work on this too, because she's spent a number of hours on this, and meeting with her, I can be the first to attest how frustrated she is that she wants bigger results for the reading. And so it's really hard for her to stand in front of you right now and share this transparency, because we definitely want more growth in this.
It's very hard to let the plant grow when you're constantly lifting it up to see if the roots are taking hold.
That's right.
May I ask a question about the students that are not attending summer school, and I want to call it a yo-yo effect. When I look at the percentage that remain the same, or the reading level rose, first grade's at 50%, second's at 70%, third grade's back down to 50%, fourth is at 70%. Is that a consistent trend we see year in and year out because of grade level changes? Is that just unique to this set of data?
I think we'd have to monitor that. I haven't,
Is there anything interesting about that other than it goes up and down like that? I mean, is there anything?
Yeah. No, I haven't seen that appear in other, in other assessment areas that we look at, so, but that's interesting that you note that, yeah. I haven't noticed that.
That's a 50%.
Right, yeah.
That's a 50% improvement.
Right.
or decline every other year.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
Marzano would say just collect the data, even if you're not quite sure why you're collecting it yet. We're kind of at that point with being the first year of summer school. I think we'll get better at
I like it when
how
she
we
quotes
assess
Marzano. Yep.
students during summer school and the kind of data that we do collect.
We'll watch it.
But I do think Lori has some really awesome slides coming up, right?
I do. We'll look at, actually I was crunching our fall benchmark assessment data, and when you look at, last year you were so concerned about seeing that summer slide initially when we started in the fall. It is smaller overall this fall. So, just through that lens, it looks like we're making progress, so,
It's the only lens to look through.
right. Yeah, right. So, we'll continue to monitor it.
Okay, thank you, Angie. Up next is the Educator Effectiveness Pilot, and that's the Jack Hill Middle School and Abe involved in a DPI pilot on student learning and math outcomes. So Lori, obviously you have a spectacular, I won't call it a PowerPoint.
I don't
because
have a
that's not what it is
PowerPoint,
anymore.
just 2 slides. I thought it was important to at least remind you about educator effectiveness before we dig into what our pilot experience is. And I just wanted to remind you that this is our state initiative. And we want by 2014-15 to be fully implemented in the state. And so last year there was a lot of work to develop the model, and we'll review that model real quickly here. But this year and next school year, so these 2 years right now are for school districts to pilot. And we were given an opportunity, all districts were given an opportunity to offer to participate in the pilot. And we were selected, actually blessed, I feel, to be selected to have 2 teams participate in the pilot. And we chose to participate in the SLO component, which I'll talk about, but the SLO stands for Student Learning Outcomes. So when you look at our new educator evaluation system or model, again, the pie chart here, 50% is based on models of practice. And that's based on the InTask standards, which stands for Interstate Teacher and Assessment Support Consortium for our teachers, and the ISLIC standards, which are the same standards but for leadership for our principals. So again, this is for teacher and principal evaluation, and it's based on Danielson's 4 domains and her 22 components. And that's open for a decision at each of the district levels, whether we'll use Charlotte Danielson's framework. And that's the framework that our principals currently use to observe teachers and provide feedback for professional growth. There's also an equivalency model that's out there through CISA 6, and so those are really the 2 models that are open for districts to choose. And we have lots of time yet before we make a decision. So that's 50%. The other 50% is based on a number of different percentages. So the first one, 15%, is based on state assessment. So that would be our current WKC. But really, when this goes into place by 2014, we'll have our Smarter Balanced Assessment. And it'll be 15% of value added that the teachers added to their student outcomes. So that's 15%. 15% is based on district assessment data, that's growth data, so for us it would probably be MAP data as an example. The other 15% is based on student learning objectives, and that's what you're going to learn about from our middle school staff here. And then we have 2.5% is based for the elementary middle school is based on school-wide reading data, and for the high school it's based on graduation rate, 2.5%. And then the last 2.5% is district choice. And that's still yet to be much defined by the state, but it'd be my suspicion or hunch that it'll be based on perhaps our own district goals. It could be part of, supporting our strategic plan as an example. So that's something that I think we'll have to get more details on. So together, that's the 100%. That's the new model for evaluating teachers, and teachers will receive a rating, and that will be communicated out. So at this time, I want to just highlight that those 2 teams that we had participate were participating in the SLO, and we had a team at Abe. So John was part of that group with Danny, and then we had 3 teachers. It was a 4th grade math team, and tonight, we were supposed to postpone a little bit for John to get here, but where's here? Oh, he's here. Okay, good. All right, good. So John's going to talk to you a little bit about his experience, and then we have Dave and Sue here from the middle school to talk about their experience. And so our focus has been on math for our SLO. So I'm going to turn it over to John.
Okay. And I don't have any slides.
Nope, no slides. That was the end of the spirit.
And I really want to honor and respect the teachers who voluntarily chose to partake in this pilot program, because, you know, if you've been around schools lately, teachers don't need more stuff put on their plate, and they voluntarily accepted this as part of that. On my end, it's relatively simple for me, to be honest with you, at least at this point, because my involvement was sitting down, goal setting with the teachers, making sure we were following a SMART goal format, which really fits into the type of goals that we already did, and then really focusing on our goals, not only in creating math-related goals, but trying to tie them to some building goals that we have. In terms, I know that they did some vocabulary work with their math goals, which I thought was really cool, because it gave us the chance to combine some things we were already doing with this new process through the pilot process. And how it's set up for an administrator, I will meet with the teachers early in the year, determine those goals, help them hone in on specifically what they want to achieve. Then I meet with them mid-year in order to do some progress monitoring to see where they are in terms of meeting their goals, and to try to provide support and resources that will enable them to reach those goals. And then at the conclusion of the pilot, we will meet again to see just how much progress we made towards meeting those goals. And we have 3 teachers at the middle school who participated, Dave Schwartz and Jen Fleury, who are 6th grade math teachers, and also Sue Grogan, who's an 8th grade math teacher. And we did both building goals that were specific. It could be a team goal, or it could be an individual goal. And we have a little bit of both, which is kind of cool, because we get to see both of those processes. And I'm going to have them share their goals with you today and talk a little bit about how they came up with those goals, and then what steps we're going to take to ensure that they can reach them.
I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of what we came up with. Yes.
And this is after the first meeting.
Yes, we have already met with Mr. Gunnell and discussed our ideas. He's gone through the first approval process with us. We were also working with Lori and sending things off to her, because this is our first attempt at some of this stuff. And it's been really kind of a neat little experience for me, kind of going back and forth with, I work with Mary Mielda, Don Guile, and Jen Fleury. Jen Fleury and I are part of the program. Don and Mary are kind of tagging along. So they've kind of assisted in writing some of these things, and we've kind of outlined what we'd like to do as a 6th grade. And we're going to focus on fractions, because we hear a lot of things from our 7th, 8th, 9th, and high school math teachers about, if these kids could just do fractions, life would be so much better for all of our classrooms. And I think you might agree to that.
They'd improve by 3/4.
Yeah. So the goal that we came up with, we had 5 or 6 of them I sent to Lori the first time. I think she probably kind of scratched her head and said, "Boy, this guy is like," and then I asked her for some examples after I gave her some of my ideas. And so she sent me along the way, and I kind of dug around, and I kind of puzzled some things together from other areas. But by the end of the 6th grade, all Jack Young Middle School students will take the operations with fractions post-test, a common assessment that will demonstrate mastery of fraction relationships and operations with fractions and mixed numbers, 2 critical elements of 6th grade math district curriculum and the Common Core standards. 85% of all students will score 3 out of 4 possible points on the assessments rubric. And at the present time, we have 1 student in 6th grade that would be performing at a 4 level, and 3 still at a 0%, 0% at 3 level, 10% at 2, and 89% are performing at a 1 in our standards-based grading. So we have a ways to go. And when we sat down with John goes, 85%. When he started looking at the numbers, that's a pretty lofty goal. And at first I wanted 90, and my teammates kind of said, that's a little more realistic. So that's just me.
But that does speak to something I think that was really kind of an interesting part of this process, because we talked about wanting to have goals that would stretch us. If we have easy goals to meet, achieving them is going to be a pretty hollow achievement. And we talked about the fact that we really want to stretch ourselves to, I would rather have a high goal and fall short than to have a low goal and be able to catapult over it. So I was really impressed that they really wanted to dig in and set a goal that we felt this is really going to be hard to achieve.
What would be the level that we would have had? I mean, would we have a feeling of where we would have been without this process?
Well, we've done, this is our first year, we've done a
I know.
pre-test on fraction skills.
Sure.
So this is our first data collection
Okay.
year on that particularly. Plus,
Yep.
it's our first year of using the standards-based
Sure.
scoring, so,
It's hard to
yeah.
really tie a number down.
You know, some kids do, you know, they're fairly competent at adding, subtracting fractions when they come to us. The multiplying and dividing, then tossing in mixed numbers really kind of gives them some trouble, so.
Sure.
And then I did mine a little bit different. I did mine on vocabulary in the math classroom. Part of the reason why we volunteered for this is Dave and I have a couple different leadership positions in the building, and I want to be able to really help people when we have to do this for real. So the only way to do that is to dive in and do it myself. Coming out of my comfort zone doing vocabulary, I thought was a good stretch for me. I find that my students can get the math, but they have a really hard time explaining it. And partly is because they don't know the vocabulary. So by teaching them the vocabulary and making sure that vocabulary is strong and secure, they'll be able to then take their learning to the next level to be able to speak and talk about what they're doing and not just be able to do the math. I too set pretty high goal for myself to begin with, and I started thinking, I would like 100% of my students to master vocabulary, but the reality is I might have some students that don't actually even take the post-test, and how does that then affect my overall percentages? So sometimes it's out of our control. If I have a student who has more absent days than in school days, and that would count against my 100% then. So realistically, I had to kind of back it down, in which I did. And we'll see how that turns out. But I think I'm at 85% of my students would be proficient or better on the vocabulary words. I also tried to tie it into our building goal, which is reading and vocabulary, and the district goal also. So the way I see the SLOs for math, we're already being, 2 of our SLOs are set for us in mathematics by the state and local assessments. So this third SLO for myself would make me venture into something different, something I'm not already being evaluated on, which is the math skills. So that's why I came up with vocabulary, and I'm doing this, again, to try to see how this works. The 6th grade did it as a team to go through that this year together, and I'm doing it as an island by myself to see how that feels and that works for me. And that way, we will better be able to help the other people in our building when they have to write their own SLOs, and we'll have a different perspective, but be able to help. So.
Our ultimate plan, as far as math coaches and department heads, is to be a secondary filter before we hop to Lori, before we go to John with something, kind of pass through us, kind of give us an idea of what everybody else wants to work on, and try to make sure that they have some of the things that they're going to need to be able to perform what they want to do, and make sure that they're not shooting so far that they're not going to be able to, or shooting so low and maybe trying to bump things up. So.
Yeah, it was kind of a scary process in the sense that I was writing a goal, and then I was letting my administration kind of see that, and then they were kind of giving me constructive criticism on how to make my goal better. And so I think as a teacher, it would be more comfortable the first going to a peer and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And then Dave and I can kind of just give them some suggestions and kind of take some of that stress away before they go to the next step, which is the administrator with their goal. We've always written goals in our district. That's one thing that's really great about our school district, is we've always been goal-oriented. And so this is just the natural next step. What's a little bit different here is that now we're going to be held accountable by the data. The data is going to hold us accountable for what we're writing, which is awesome, but it's also kind of scary because we'll have to see the end result now when we do this. So.
And I will say one of the things that really assisted this process was the fact that we've gone through the SMART goal process as far as setting our individual goals in our building, so that was familiar to them as they participated in this. And I will also say, we're talking about meeting right now with 3 teachers. When this goes live, we're talking about a whole building of teachers, and the time commitment involved in that. It is absolutely critical that we have that PLC calendar in place so that it will allow us the time to sit down and really use that time to help build our staff and to help set not only goals that stretch us, but goals that we're going to set that will make us better as a building and as a district.
I think, again, this is phenomenal work. I heard a couple of things that I just want to ask just a few questions. One, fear is a terrible thing. And what can we do to relieve the fear about engaging in processes that are new, challenging, and to remove the idea that it's, either you succeed at it or you fail at it. No. It's just like what we're doing with all of our students, right? It's to help us collectively as individuals, as teams, to identify how we can support each other. Because I think as an educational community, our entire purpose is to build and support each other for the future. So what I do know that fear about exposing, when will they all recognize that I really don't know as much as I think I do, that human fear, to being able to say, how do you see it, and what's your training? So I think peer involvement within the building, in the department, is incredibly important, and I think through the silos of elementary, middle, and high school are also incredibly important to bring people together, to share those experiences, not just the data, which is where we begin, but recognizing that, as Crystal said, there's some things that the data are not going to reveal to us, and that only happens while we talk it through together. So thank you for the work. And John, I have absolutely, I know whereof you speak in terms of the amount of time and effort that it will take to support the groups of teachers that you're charged with, and I would ask you to guide us to what you need to help make that happen. I do think most of it is peer-driven.
And to speak to the question of fear and what you can do to support that, is really realizing that we are going to stretch ourselves with the goals. So if we fall short, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn and to continue to push to grow our students. And to realize again that we are working with living, breathing students, and things happen that sometimes don't play out in data.
I commend you on your choices of goals, particularly at the vocabulary, both of them actually. The vocabulary in part because it is part of our strategic, part of our goals for the year, but also because of what you said. Kids might know how to do it, but they don't know how to explain it. And I think that that's critical, a critical piece. Wish my school had demanded the fractions from me at that age.
No, it's too bad. Adults show up every once in a while.
Well, eventually I got it, but not in this grade. It took me a lot longer.
Well, and everything, and that's, again, probably in my past education, fractions weren't part of it. I didn't think I saw a lot of fractions until 7th and 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But the standards have been changed, those bars have been raised quite high. Our kids are doing a lot more now than they ever had in the past, math.
Do their iPhones have voice recognition for fractions?
Well, there are fraction apps. And stuff.
That is one thing the process made us do, I guess you would say, is to really look at where we needed to focus. What one thing could I do that would have the biggest impact on my student body? And so, we sat down, we talked about it, and at 6th grade, we said, it's those basic skills that, they're not gonna go any further with the algebra if they don't have those basic skills. And then at my end, at the 8th grade level, it's how can they now express this and talk about it and explain it? And so it made us look at the data and how can we improve the data? It was really data driven on what we wanted as outcomes. So it was quite the process, but I think that it makes us focus a little more on where we want to be at the end. We looked at the end first. which is a little bit different than what we've done in the past.
We're just doing this in math.
We are just doing this in math with just so we just have one 4th grade team, one 6th grade team, and one 8th grade teacher.
Have we been able to transfer this process into other areas? I mean,
That is what we will need to do by 2014. Mhm.
Remember that we're part of the pilot to
Mhm.
help inform changes
pilot.
in
Right.
the process.
It's an opportunity for us to
So-
give feedback on what's working, what's not, and that's why it was really important to us that we had an individual and we had a team process. You know, I think one of the fears that's been communicated through my peers is we don't want this process to become a competitive process between teachers.
No.
And so the state has been really good about making sure that it's available for teams to write SLOs together. The other thing you should know about the SLO process is that if there's a teacher in the building who doesn't have their data or assessments measured through reading or math, they have to have 3 SLOs. So right now, our math or literacy teachers only need to have 1 SLO, but if we have less data to look at for the educator effectiveness for an individual, like a music teacher, for example, the music teacher will have 3 SLOs to use, and those take more weight than in the overall percentage, just to give you a sense of how that looks.
Administrator, and, I mean, it's 3 times a year that we sit down and discuss this. So, I mean, it's a huge time commitment, not only on our parts, but as teachers, but it's also administration. So it's going to be quite the challenge.
And the feedback so far that's been received by the state, because I had an opportunity to meet with a lot of my peers on Friday who participated as well, the takeaways for all of us was the need for our teachers to really be data-driven decision makers through this process and to collect baseline data at the start of the school year, the importance of having professional development for school districts on writing good SMART goals. You can see this is very smart. And also having collaboration time built into structures for coaches to work with each other and their peers to develop these goals, but time for administrators to work and process these goals and progress with their staff as well. So those were the big takeaways, and a lot of conversation about the changing landscape for principals moving forward, because this is only 15% of the model. The other 50% is their observations of their staff. So it's a lot of change for principals. Good change.
But it builds on all of the changes that we've made over the last
Right.
year or two. It actually gave you the data that from the past and the SMART goals from the past gave you a place to start, and to build from. So all of that work that's been done is paying off.
We were a good district to pilot.
That's why we got 2 teams.
That's right.
Most districts only have 1. Thank you both for coming tonight,
you.
for participating and taking a risk.
Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Grading Guidelines and Standards-Based Report Cards. Board members have guidelines in front of you. Who's
Yep.
going to interpret? Lori?
Yep, so I just wanted to remind you that we have a number of links on our district webpage to access a number of our documents for grading. So if you are at our district webpage and you go to curriculum and instruction, Ellen has helped me out here. So I can scroll down. There's a section here right above our lovely pictures about grading and reporting. And so when you go to that site, you'll see our grading guidelines are posted there, along with our rubrics for 4-point and for citizenship. So, if you feel like you still need to review that, I would encourage you to do so. But the other document that I think is pretty significant, I did include in your packet at the top, Purpose of Grading, and this is a document that is an artifact of the work that the School Improvement Leadership Team, or SILT, had worked on last school year to help the staff move forward with implementing better grading practices to better communicate student learning. So you can see that there's definitions about formative and summative assessment, and we've outlined some grading guidelines in terms of grade formation, late work, how to do retakes, and how to deal with homework. And at the very bottom of homework, noting that extra credit is not going to be offered anymore in the district. So again, I'm not going to walk you through this step by step. If you have questions, I'd like to address them for you. But the timeline for implementation, we decided this school year, K-12, all of our teachers would work to implement these best grading practices. We also decided K-12 that we would separate academic and citizenship grades on our report cards. So you'll note that with the report cards that are just coming to families right now. And then K-8, we also made that commitment to grade with the 4-point rubric. Okay, so the reason we went to a 4-point rubric is to show how well students know or are able to do the certain skills or concepts that we have identified with our essential learning targets. So that's in an effort to better communicate student learning, but actually having a conversation with one of your own, Sean McNevin. We were talking one day about another importance of the 4-point rubric. And so I'm going to pull that up. And this is through some professional development I've been doing with the staff as they're working on developing common assessments. And part of that common assessment development is starting with a 4-point rubric. And what comes out of that process is more rigor. And that's really what's essential for me. You can see in this example that when we're working with teachers, we talk about their essential learning targets. So in this example, it's a science example with students making predictions. And if that's what we want all students to be able to do, on our grading rubric, that's a 3. Because 3 is the new indicator of success for our students. If we want students to achieve a 4, we want them to be able to do the same essential learning target, but with more complex content. And so in this example, it talks about students will be able to discuss the role of genetics and diseases such as diabetes. It's focused on that same essential learning target, but at a higher level. So that's how students would demonstrate a 4. And then we talk about what's a little bit more simple, that would be a 2. So in this case, they'll recall facts. You can see recall is a low-level questioning skill. And in having conversations about those verbs that we use when we talk about how we will assess students, we've had a lot of conversation about truly ensuring that our assessments match the verbs. And when we want to be more complex, we change the skill level of those verbs to get more complex with our students. And so, this translation for grades then, you can see the 4, 3, 2, 1 here. Again, the essential learning target is a 3. Simpler content is a 2. And if students have some partial success with help, they get a 1. But if they're able to go above and beyond that essential learning target, they get a 4. So you just heard our math department talking about they're using assessments, common assessments, as a pretest. And so what that means is they develop their assessment with the 4-point rubric, they give it out prior to instruction, and if students are scoring, at a level where they need some work, like at a 1 or 2, they can see appropriate groupings for differentiation in their classroom. If a student's already scoring a 4 on their pretest, they know that means that we also need more enrichment for that student. But the conversation then evolves to, well, we want to make sure that by the time the students take that same assessment as a post-test, that they all get 3s, because that's the indicator of success. And then the next piece of conversation is, well, that's really hard. Good, because that means we're going to change our instruction to guarantee that kids are achieving that more rigorous standard. So the 4-point rubric has allowed us to better communicate our student achievement, but it's also reforming our instruction in the classroom.
Allows you to better communicate your student achievement with whom?
With parents and with students. And so can I share an example of that with your report card?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, all right. So if you turn the page and look at the gold page, you'll see an old 3rd grade report card. And it says, for lack of better, because it says old report cards on the top in the gray boxes. So I want you to look at that and look at what kind of information, we white out the student, look at what kind of information you might get about that student's progress. And keeping in mind that really the 4-point isn't new for our elementary students. And then if you turn to the next page, I want to highlight the letter that went home to families, in this case the Jack Young Middle School students, where in the first paragraph it talks about our new guidelines and a reminder of how we got there as part of our district strategic plan. And in the second paragraph, we try to walk the parents through what the marked distinction is here on the report card, that there is a score for academic achievement and a score for citizenship skills. And that for each of those content areas, the essential learning targets are listed, and teachers give a numeric score for each of those targets. And we also make it clear that you really can't truly convert a 4 to an A, a 3 to a B, etc. There's no direct correlation. And that a score of a 3, or for a student to have all 3s next to all their essential learning targets, is the new indicator of success. And if a parent sees 1s or 2s on their student's report card, initially that may cause concern, but that's better communication to the family and to the student that those are skills that we still need to work on. And it's not the end of the grading for that particular essential learning target. We're going to continue to collaborate together to make sure that the student masters that. That I hope is more information than just looking at a percentage. You know, Clint is in science class and he gets an 86%. What does that mean? What skills does he really have mastery of, and which skills does he not? And then we also highlight in the third paragraph the citizenship, and that, you know, if a student receives a citizenship score that is not desirable, we encourage families to take that as an opportunity to have conversations about why is that. Hopefully it's not a surprise. And that those are skills that we feel are really successful for 21st century learning and for their work environment, workforce moving forward. So now we're going to look at the new report card for third grade, which is the, I don't know, buff color, I guess, is the best way to explain that color. And you'll see, I hope, that there's a notable difference in the language in terms of the essential learning targets that are listed for each content area. That's a little bit different than what you saw in the gold. Does anybody want to comment on it, on something that they notice different?
Seems to be more definitive language here, but still, and I understand that here when I'm looking at a form like this, I can only get so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like use grade level appropriate grammar and conventions.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what third grade grammar and conventions is. What would I make out of that?
Mm-hmm.
How could I really get more specific? How could it be more specific to me?
But as a parent, we are receiving various kinds of communications on a weekly basis that demonstrate in the parent guides what the kids are working with, what the targets are, and essentially explains this language, which then gives a summation whether they've mastered it or not.
Right. Well, and it's a, yep, absolutely. And it's a great conversation to have. You know, that's the tension of doing standards-based reporting, is we can't, you know, because each content area has 30 plus targets. And so as a staff, we had to look at what's most essential to report on. And in some cases, yeah, to get more detailed or to drill down more detail, it's going back to maybe Infinite Campus or the teacher's grade book to see what specific skills were they working on under one target. And we had that conversation in my own household. You know, my daughter came home with a 2 in math on, you know, graphs, and so we have a conversation with her. Why is that? What kind of graphs are you working on? You know, so that we can provide support at home. So we do have to dig deeper because it's not all comprehensive here or inclusive. But I hope that you see that there's more description than what we're used to. And maybe just to carry it forward, if you look at the pink, you know, for Jack Young Middle School, it's more drastic of a change. Last year's report card, you got comments from each teacher, and you have a percentage. So this was a really high achieving student here with a lot of 90 percentage points. And then you compare that to the new Jack Young Middle School report card, which is more of a gray. And you can see that there's a lot more detail there to have those kind of conversations that I was just using from my own home as an example. And then you'll see too the skills for success, which is what the elementary calls the citizenship skills. You can see that for each of the content areas on the middle school report card, that those are included at the end for each content area. So for example, if you look at 7th grade health on the left hand side at the very bottom, you'll see that there are some target areas, but then you see that there's a score of PPP for respect, responsibility, and work ethic. And that is present for each of the content areas. So one of the things I wanted to to remind you is that this is a process. And I was at the Jack Young Middle School faculty meeting this evening, and John was doing a great job cheerleading our effort and the work that we've been doing, but also acknowledging that we still have work to do. And I think that the teachers would be very honest with you and say that they're not 100% confident yet that they got this all figured out, but they're well underway. And I think there's more confidence in the fact that there's more consistency in our grading efforts right now than we have had in the past. And you're able to gather more detail at this point on how your student is progressing, both academically and in terms of as a citizen.
I think this is tremendous. I think one of the greatest challenges, however, for our teachers is that the amount of time it takes to do the administrative work that is summarized in these grades may have a negative impact on, number one, the amount of time for instruction, and or just overload.
I'll speak to that. You know, during the course of the quarter, the feedback I've received from the teachers is it's required less time in terms of grading, but when it came time to reporting, it takes more time. And so John was acknowledging that with his staff, that we provided time for them to make sure that they were ready to put out the report cards, but his epiphany or takeaway, he said, is we still need to do that every quarter because we want to make sure that they have enough time. And, you know, we have that PLC structure time built in to do that.
And we took part of our team planning time as well to not only actually work on the entry of the grades, but also to meet as teams to discuss, you know, what does a 2 mean to you, what does a 4 mean to you, so that there was more consistency within teams in terms of how they were reporting grades out to parents.
And when we start saying a 3, are we really then, this is tied into the Common Core, so a 3 in any instance, that's the standard, correct?
Correct, yep, correct. And that again goes back to that concern I have that our assessments are indeed more rigorous, because we know those Common Core standards are more rigorous. So that's our effort right now in developing common assessments, is to really make sure our assessments are measuring the skills we want our kids to know and be able to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that, and again, I'm not saying Baraboo, but I mean, that has been a knock, and I mean, many times in many instances of the educational system, is kids will come out and they'll be A's, but it'll be, a lot of that A might be a citizenship type grade.
Right.
And so they'll get into college and saying, you really don't know the math, you really don't know this subject. What were your grades? Well, I was a straight A student.
Because you can sit still.
Because you were a good participator, right?
Sure,
Then I would have gotten
Right, right.
So you do the same type of grading at high school,
Right now at the high school, we have implemented the best grading practices that are listed here, but we haven't gone to the 4-point rubric.
So they aren't graded by 4, 3, 2, and 1?
Correct. They still
Are
have
they going to
percentages and
eventually?
letter grades. Well, we had a lot of conversation about that today as a Baraboo High School leadership team, and we have a number of priorities in the high school right now that is intertwined with this whole grading process. One is, you know, we've increased graduation requirements. We're implementing block scheduling to ensure our students can accumulate the credits that they need to graduate with those increased graduation requirements, which changes their instruction. They're working on these common assessments and they're starting to develop 4-point rubrics, but they're at a slower pace because they have more on their plate right now to change the way their building looks in terms of instruction. And maybe I'll let Bill Kibitson.
Well, I
He's-
guess,
it's-
I
he's
guess
really
where I'm
passionate
going
about it.
with this is, you know, when a senior enters college, do they look at your grade point average when you enter college? If they do, how will they be able to tell by 4, 3, 2, and 1?
Well, that's part of what makes this a bit more complicated for the high school, because we need to look at more of a standards reference grading system, at least in my opinion, which means that we somehow need to reconfigure those 4, 3, 2, 1s into some sort of letter grade or percentage grade, because that's what colleges and post-secondary institutions recognize. So until we can get some post-secondary institutions to come in and tell us exactly how they would like to see it look or how it could look for them so that they can make sense of it or use of it, standards referenced seems to be more of where we need to go as opposed to a standards base. So it's the same thing, it just is a matter of taking an extra step to convert that grade into something that's meaningful to post-secondary institutions.
So then could 4, 3, 2, and 1 be A, B, C, and D?
No, no. Because the 3 is really the standard, the 3 is the A, and so that's where it gets to be a bit dicey. And so there's a number of crosswalk tables that various authors, including Bob Marzano, because everybody likes to hear his name mentioned, you know, have developed, and that's just something that we have to come to terms and wrestle with. But with all the things that we have going on right now, as Lori alluded to, and as you approved back in the summertime, as far as the move to a block schedule and what that's associated with that, that's a huge, huge piece, which was not on the table when we began, you know, the conversation about standards-based grading as a K-12 district out of Silt. So we need to make sure that that goes well, because if that doesn't go well, it doesn't make any difference what else is going on. So.
Our conversation today was really what is our sense of urgency, and our urgency in the high schools to closing the gap for kids.
Yep.
And so we feel with the work that we currently have on the table is working to address to close the gap for students. And so we can begin the process of developing those common assessments to increase that rigor, like I was just saying. And that's important to us without fully committing to a 4-point at this time. So we're taking those steps, and we have much work to do as a staff to be prepared to have a successful implementation of a 4-point if we were to go that route.
So then what you're saying, a 3 doesn't mean that you're getting a 90 to a 94, and a 4 doesn't mean you're 94 to 100. You're
Right.
still working on.
We would have to figure out what that would mean, and do we maintain, if we were to report out on a 100-point scale, okay, do we continue to do that, or do we report out on A, B, C, D type of scale? And that's something that else we'd have to come to terms with and wrestle with. So it's not a real simplistic, you know, shift, because there's that layer of post-secondary, and what does that mean for students, what does that mean for post-secondary institutions? And we need to address that.
Well, and where are colleges and universities moving toward? They're certainly not staying with grade point average.
There's less focus on grade point average for admissions and more on rigor of coursework, ACT scores, the whole child, looking at their involvement and.
Standards-based assessments.
Which is the Laude system, which you are well aware of,
Exactly.
which starts with next year's graduating class. And so, I mean, we're making a lot of steps towards all these different things. It's just a matter of prioritization, and right now, we have got to make sure that we complete our graduation requirement proposal, which you'll be receiving, you know, hopefully no later than March. You know, you addressed the whole credit piece, you know, back in June, but we told you we'd come forward with recommendations on service learning, which is part of our strategic plan, financial literacy, and so we have to deal with that, and there's an online learning component, so we're trying to address those issues as well. Movement to the block, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's just so many things that we have going on right now that we need to make sure we do well.
Right. I just want to assuage Ed's concern that our students are not going to be disadvantaged.
Oh, that's definitely not our focus.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
presentation. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future. Near future, far future, but thank you. Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled reports.
PowerPoint.
I do not have any reports that I have listed, so that brings us to personnel recommendations, of which we do not have any approval of resignations. We do have the requested approval of a new hire. That is for Patricia Kelly for service for incarcerated students, and that is for a maximum of 5 hours per week.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Neering. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Brings us to approval of postings, of which there are none. Approval of long-term substitute positions, of which we have none. Approval of temporary RTI assistants. There are 2 of them. We can take them both together if you would motion it as such.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Neering. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And lastly, under personnel, the co-curricular position for marching band Griffin James. Background provided to you in your board packet. Entertain a motion for that approval.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Meering, seconded by Vedro. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, Motion carried. Brings us now to new business. Do we have any requests for approval of the exception of the open enrollment application period?
We sure do. Every meeting. Two were included in the board notes. The board previously approved a 10th grade high school student open enrolling out to Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb denied this student, so she is now requesting to open enroll out to Waukesha. So that is one request. We also have a request from an 11th grade student from Portage to open enroll into Baraboo. And we have a 4K student that I did not include in the board notes, who is currently in Baraboo requesting SOC, school district. So we have 3 tonight.
Entertaining motion to approve those exceptions. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vidro, seconded by Riley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to new business request for the approval of an out-of-state trip for the high school math teacher, Mr. Labitz, and a student. And they will be going to San Diego, I believe. Entertaining motion to that effect.
Move to approve it.
Second, with proviso that I can go along. Is there a board member that should be participating?
Are you coming back?
Questionable.
It may change my vote.
Is there some point where we should bring this student to our meeting to honor? I would believe that it's certainly very appropriate. So.
Yeah, we'll have them follow up with a report on the competition.
Lovely.
Having a motion and a second, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Good luck to Caitlin. Brings us to Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee discussion, potential action, and for that update, I will turn to Chair of Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation, Mr. Cummings.
Earlier this evening, BG&T met, discussed 2 possible shuttle routes within the district. Right now, the rules or what have you is anybody that's within 2 miles of the school is not eligible for transportation. City of Baraboo was getting a little scattered out quite a bit, and several hardships at outlying or different portions of schools. Martha and Crystal are looking into the possibility of developing 1 or maybe 2 at least shuttle buses, and I would like to give them permission to check it out and see what they can do as far as, along with First Student, as far as to streamline the process of getting kids to school in a safe and orderly manner. And the possibility of the projected cost right now is around, with the 2 routes starting about the first of the year, would be a projected cost of around $21,000. On a trial basis to see how things go and see how we get things worked out this year and get it, and from here on out, then maybe streamline it or get it working. So I will make that motion that let Martha and Crystal work on that. In a motion.
Second.
Is that actually starting the bus route, or is that just looking at the numbers?
Well, we already looked at the numbers, and so we would evaluate the bus participants for this next semester until the end of the year. We're looking at having a shuttle bus run from Abe School and East School, and primarily to get our middle school and high school students who live on those kind of far-reaching corners of our city limits here to the high school. We provided a rationale regarding the importance of attendance and student achievement. We also talked about equity issues and looking at some of the demographics and socioeconomic factors that play into it as well. And we've had an increasing number of requests at central office from families, like the gentleman we heard here tonight, who are, you know, their resources are exhausted and they're looking for support in those areas. We also have some students who are actually within the city limits, but it's over 2 miles for them to walk. So when we look at extreme weather conditions in the winter, we're looking at kids that are walking, 45 minutes or more to get to school.
Right, but the evaluation process, I mean, once we start a bus route, you're not disconnecting it. I mean.
Well, we talked about in committee.
This district went through cutting shuttle bus routes at one point in the past, didn't they? I mean,
In
Ken-
2005.
As we did.
So I'm just saying it's a tumultuous process to start, to stop when we start.
The committee did discuss the financial commitment that would be on an annual basis. What remains unknown right now is if we have the need for 2 shuttle buses or 1. And we would like for parents to register to participate on those shuttles so we have a better idea of the numbers. And we would clearly communicate to parents that, the continued service would be dependent on the participation. And we certainly can't provide a shuttle bus for 5 kids. But I think we'll see a pretty large number of kids participating.
Is the 21,000, is that per semester?
Yes.
The
2 buses for
The
one semester.
anticipated
We're-
21,000. I
We're
understand that's a
estimating high at
guesstimation.
50,000 for two shuttles for the entire year.
And I don't think we're gonna solve that gentleman's problem
No.
with this.
No, because this particular scenario or solution is transporting between East and Albion to the middle and to the high school. Whereas his situation was 8th Street to GLW.
Right.
So, no, to answer the question, I want to make sure that we understand we're not addressing that particular concern with this.
Right.
But, Sean, your point of, once you start the shuttle route, it's hard to discontinue it. I think there'd be every expectation that certainly they would be utilized, but, if we're gonna start this January 3rd, run it through the end of the school year, we should have an idea of what the ridership is fairly quickly, because January, people are gonna be wanting to ride the bus.
There's a couple things to that, and obviously, I think with each of these parents, we have to say, this is a trial basis. And we're working to say that we are going to reevaluate this come the summer. So, I would like to say that we revisit this again in the summer and say, how did it work out? Not that we're just going to continue it, but we want to review what actually happened. And one of the things I would like to look at is, obviously, we would like to look at the education value of doing this. And so, and again, obviously, there's privacy issues that are involved with it, but we can track these students to say, did their attendance actually improve based upon their use of this program? Not that they got to use not that they got to use this program, but then that there is some improvements in the education.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
I would also ask the committee to seek reaching out to the larger community, our faith communities that have various kinds of transportation in the communities in which they serve, carpooling, that in particular, this man's concern that we will not be able to address tonight may be a concern experienced by other parents and children. This is a community-wide issue, an effort, the same way I believe that we have instituted a program to feed our community that asks to be fed through a federal grant. We can think of innovative ways, in addition to what we're looking at with the shuttle, to find solutions that the community help create.
I know that there are kind of insurance and liability issues in those kinds of discussions, but I've long thought that a Facebook page that was Baraboo School District Transportation might help people find ways to share, to carpool, to, again, understanding the liability aspect of that, it might solve this gentleman's problem. It may have solved the problem that was brought to my attention at the beginning of this year with a student needing transportation to athletics. If there were a way that we could put out a Facebook page that'll, or a parent-teacher organization could put out a Facebook page that would not make us liable, but would allow for conversation between families, it could be really helpful.
Well, I think we can certainly continue that conversation. I want us to try and remain on topic here, but I don't want to diminish your point, which is a good one, and I think we can pursue the option of trying to facilitate that in one form or another. Mr. Cummings made the motion. Ms. Riley, did you not second the motion?
No, I think Mr. Merrick seconded
Okay.
the motion.
Want to clarify that now if you're approving or?
The motion made by Mr. Cummings was to approve the addition of the 2 routes, up to the 2 routes, starting on the 2nd of January for the second semester. Is that correct, Mr. Cummings?
Right, the total cost not to exceed around 21,000, I'll come back to the board. But Crystal and Martha,
And we could certainly, once we get this off the ground, we can certainly come back or provide some more information to the board.
maybe after the spring, you'll have more ideas how to streamline it. Maybe you won't have the amount of people, maybe you only need 1 bus, maybe with working with first student, you can tie it in with the route here, so it's not really specific, but it gives them a chance to be able to work with it and try to streamline it at a low cost.
But Rita, Gary, this is gonna be more than 21,000, because that doesn't figure the fuel. It's 10,500 for each route, if we have 2 routes.
Right.
That's 21,000, then we gotta figure the fuel on top of that.
Okay, plus the fuel. With the information that we're.
As presented.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank
Okay.
you.
Then the
Continuing, Gary?
The summer projects that for next year, 13-14 year, these have to be approved by the board. We've mentioned them before, replacing the bleachers in the gymnasium there for around $160,000. The panels and painting the ductwork and stuff in the pool, which is approximately $30,000, and painting and sanding down the light poles in the athletic field out here for a total cost of around $200,000 to be in next year's capital projects, 13-14, and this will allow the business department here to take bids and go ahead and do the projects. The funding for it is being worked on as we speak. We'll go back to old Bike Sean here, and he'll take care of some of that, but if not, I mean, we've got it, we're working and figuring it out and stuff like this, and also part of the fund balance. It's all part of our projected budget for next year. So. And I would make that a motion that we approve these 3.
These 3? We're just doing 3.
At this time,
At this
that's
time.
what we're at, and that's because we need to order the equipment, so that it's here in time for summer.
So it's the top 3,
installation.
the light poles, the panels,
Right.
and the bleacher. But nothing on carpet replacement and the rest at this point.
Not at this time.
That's what we're considering.
Not at this time until we figure out our budget. and-
Okay.
and
All right,
finances.
that's fine.
Gary, do you happen to know if the work on the bleachers in the gym, the upper levels, currently those spaces, if I understand correctly, are used for gymnastics?
Different areas, yes.
Yeah, these new bleachers will not.
They're new, they will slide back like the old ones there.
But they won't deplete the space, in other words, okay.
Actually, these ones here are getting to the point now, they're originally put in here, I believe 62 or 63, and are shot.
Right.
These ones here will bring the new ones and bring it up to the code, especially for American disabilities and stuff like this with railing and what have you, so.
And the maintenance on the current ones is huge, even on a yearly basis.
Right.
Well, it's
They're
not,
not
it's not,
approved.
it's not huge, but it's.
Well, it's significant to the point of saying
I just
we're
don't-
chasing good money after that.
Well, I don't want to exaggerate though, it's.
I don't know, huge, whatever number. It's a significant number.
But this has been on the list here, all three of these projects.
Who was the second on the motion? Or did we not have a second yet? Okay. Still waiting for a second.
I'll second.
Just want to make sure we didn't get our discussion out of the second. Is there any further discussion?
Will there be another proposal brought forward with continuation of the middle school walls?
That is being worked on as we speak, but then again, right there, we have the material for that. We don't need, doesn't need to have to go out right now for, this
Yeah.
right here has to be.
Right, I understand.
So we want to make sure that any major capital projects are in alignment with our phase 2 with EUA as well, and we have a meeting coming up this week, so we'll try to tie all of it together.
Well, and just a clarification that this is the 2013-2014 budget, not the 2012-2013 budget. So these projects will not affect the budget until after July of next year.
Right, I understand.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Cummings. And now we turn to Chair of Policy, Mr. Mearing.
All right, I hope you guys don't mind me talking very fast. Let's see if we can do this as quickly as we can. Starting with number 152, this is goal setting. There is no educational direction committee, and it is all based upon a strategic plan. So my motion is to delete the goal setting policy at this point.
Second.
152.
A motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Mearing, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Point of clarification on a deletion, does it require a second action? Okay. So we'll come back to that for a second reading. and
Yeah, we'll have a
deletion.
second reading on that. Okay, for the first reading of 153, school board evaluation. Basically, if you look on the new policies that were sent out, it's the bolded, and I'll just read that. The criterion will be tied to the district's strategic plan goals, and the evaluation will be consistent with the evaluation process utilized by the district, and that is my motion.
Second. Motion by Mearing, seconded by Bedro. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the 153 school board evaluation first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Doug?
Okay, 166.1, technology use for school board members. I will read that one. It is the intent of the Baraboo School District's Board of Education to use technology as a tool to better focus on student achievement, local education policy, fiscal matters, and a host of other items that are vital to a district's success. The Baraboo School District has made a significant commitment to technology and providing many resources to its student, staff, and school board members. The idea of providing these resources to its board members is that the effective use of technology at the governance level will improve the flow and use of information in the decision-making process. Technology can be an important tool for accessing, interpreting, and communicating the vast amount of information and data needed to make better and more informed decisions. The district also recognizes the need to develop guidelines in relationship to use of the resources provided to its board members. And all legal and cross-references are included, and there is an attached rule, which we don't have to approve, but it's for your reference, 166.1. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Mearing, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the first reading of 166.1 and the attached rule, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Okay, evaluation of the district administrator, it's going to be similar to the school board one. And again, it's 225, and it's in bold, the change, or the addition, I should say. And the strikeout you can also see. The criteria will be tied to the district's strategic plan goals, and the evaluation will be consistent with the evaluated process utilized by the district. That is my motion for the evaluation with the district administrator.
Second. Motion by Mearing, seconded by Vidro. Any discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that I think, and I did discuss this with Dr. Ritzenthaler, is I think we should date it because, and to be consistent with where our evaluation is with the rest of the district. I was saying that we should say that this should be completed by June 1st. Does that make sense? Okay. So I would like to propose an amendment. I didn't want to include that, but I wanted to include it at least in discussion. That my amendment would be that the policy or the evaluation would be completed by June 1st.
That you're inserting that into the policy somewhere?
Yes.
Just at the end of the first.
Okay.
End of the first.
Okay. And Mr. Vidro, do you accept that?
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Well, I have a point, it's not part of the discussed, but in paragraph 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, line 4, the sentence "these encompass" has an extra P in encompass. Just can't help but see it. I didn't. Fractions not so good, words much better.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of 225, evaluation of district administrator with the additions and the spelling correction, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Mr. Mearing?
Okay, 411, equal educational opportunities. And I just, if you want to, just to know what the changes are, approved as in your board packet, is there are some additional changes, and that's just to be consistent with the federal legislation wording. And so that's my motion. I won't read it all.
Second.
Motion by Mearing, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of 411 rule and the rule for the first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Doug?
Okay. 443?
422.
422 is just a rule.
Yeah.
And so that's just for your reference, guidelines for foreign exchange students. So if you want to read
Okay.
through that, if you have any questions, that's all that is. It's just for reference purposes. So we can move on, I guess, to 443.5. Student use of electronic communication devices. And this has been a, hopefully you've got the packet. And so this 443.5, just I want to say to approve it as written. We did have a very complete discussion on policy on this, and so that's my motion. And I'll have some brief discussion on get to that point.
Second.
Motion by Mearing, seconded by Vidro. Discussion?
Okay, the only things that are different, and again, if you have any questions, I know that Bill and Lori could probably answer those, is originally this has been a pilot program for our high school program. And then so the only thing is there, based upon the experience, you'll see items 6 through 10, some additional wording, I think just through the process of the pilot that was added to it, so.
Did we seriously have somebody trying to bring a desktop into the building?
We had a little discussion about that.
You got a big backpack, I suppose you can haul it in.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, 443.71, Doug?
Yeah, bowling. in the attached rule, which you don't have to approve. I move to approve 443.71. As you see in your board packet, the only thing that has been changed is some additional wording. I'll read the one additional line. That's in the definition. If the behavior is motivated by a characteristic protected by state or federal law, board policies 411 and 411R should also be reviewed related to the equal educational opportunities and student discrimination complaint procedures. And then just some additional wording changes were made into bullying behaviors, but nothing major. That's my motion. And then you'll see some changes in the legal and cross references to be in current compliance with state and federal statutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Miriam, seconded by Riley. Discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Mearing?
Okay, equal opportunity employment number 511. And I want to move that we approve it as with the change. The only change being is that instead of the Director of Special Education and Pupil Services, it will now be processed by the Human Resources Director. I think that was the only change.
No, these are changing the
We
first
added a
paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Portion of the
Thank you.
sentence.
Thank you. Okay. Going too fast. Okay, you see the declining to, okay, this is non-working hours, declining to attend a meeting or to participate in any communication about religious matter or political matters or any other reason prohibited by state or federal law. And we did have some discussion on that, and if anybody has some questions on that, Craig could probably fulfill us more on why we had to make that change. That's my point.
Basically, there was an addition to employment discrimination law in Wisconsin, and that was one of the factors that was added.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Miriam, seconded by Vigo. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to 533.1 because 527 is a rule, correct?
Yeah, that's just for your reference, so. Okay, let me get that file. Okay, 533.1, it is a new policy, but again, as I said, hopefully you've got a chance to read it if anybody wants to have any question, but we did talk about it quite extensively in policy, so I include it as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mearing, seconded by Vidro. Any further discussion?
I just want to clarify that it is a new policy, however, it's consistent with our current practice.
Yeah.
We just didn't have a policy to reflect that.
We're just codifying and putting them in our policies.
Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. 546.
Okay, 546 is deletion. So I move to approve the deletion of the layoff and recall of non-represented certified staff.
Second. Go ahead.
Sue was the
Second.
second. Ms. Riley? Motion by Mearing, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to exhibit, I guess.
Okay. This is just, and we still have to approve it. So I move to approve the exhibit as it's listed in the board packet. It's just something additional so we can give clarifications to people when they were looking at the public complaints. Now they will know who to go to.
Doesn't require board action.
It's part of a policy.
Okay. So
I'd say we
then I'll,
still need
then I'll
to-
entertain that, or take that motion and ask for a second. Motion by Mearing, seconded by Bedro.
Is that part of a rule, or is,
No, it's a form, so.
it is part of the policy?
Right.
Okay.
It deals with public
I did on my-
complaints and.
Okay, I
and one
was
of
pretty sure
our-
it was part of
One
the
of our
policy.
many audits, federal audits we had, this was something that they said we had to provide specific contact information.
The only question I have on, and we did get a second, on the final form that we did receive in our board packet, some of them, we had some general email addresses, some of them we did not. Is there a reason why we didn't include maybe a general email or address for all of them? So it isn't just a phone call, but that if they wanted to, they could.
They haven't been set up. Yeah, I did inquire to Matt about that. You'll see that the people's specific names are not included, so if there's turnover, that in those positions, it still continues to.
Yeah, but
have
like,
the
there
same
were some that weren't, there wasn't an email address. Like, you had like a D district administrator, I can't pull it up on the thing right now.
Yeah,
but-
right. I know, I communicated to Matt about that.
So when we get the final form, it
I
will
think you
have
should
those?
approve it as it is right now.
Okay.
If we put those emails in, we can come back with that.
Okay, that's fine, then we'll approve it as is right now. Thank you.
Further discussion?
The majority of the policies reference those three positions
I know.
as
I
contacts.
know, but it's a thing, it's just the same.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Entertaining motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.